So as the day comes to a close, I'm gonna talk about one more thing for the Crosswind show. Oh, not even not Crosswind yet again. My LLC, remember? The Anthony.Tony.Cashman 53297 channel. Hashtag tag. My LLC, copyright 2023. You get get more than what you want. So that's the new name. I'm gonna say that one more time for now, but if I keep saying that, I'm sorry. But anyways, for this last video of the 22nd of June, we're going to talk about claymation, surprisingly. We're going to talk about what my claymation efforts say about my experience as a content creator on YouTube. So the title's going to be a little different, I think, but just for the 300 characters for the max tile thing or less, as if I wouldn't have to max tiles the whole time. However, so yeah, okay. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the actual videos I made with claymation in general with the claymation stuff. And then I'm going to tie that back into talking about what I really feel about my journey on YouTube, and not just the personal things I tie with it, but it includes those for sure, because that's my story, at least, not just on YouTube, but yeah. I don't have to give you the whole play-by-play, but basically I would taper in and out and in and out and in and out with claymation in general. I would go back and forth between making claymations and then take a few years off to supposedly live real life, and then take a few years in back into claymation, and then the way I even define living real life is a little different because I don't even know what life even is. So saying that abstractly and philosophically, but whatever people live in their lives without YouTube or with YouTube and whatnot, I would go in and out and in and out and in and out, going back and forth between claymations and then supposedly again real life or internet, whatever, how have you, internet real life, stuff like that. Even internet without YouTube. It's kind of like internet forming, for that matter, or social media or whatever. Social media without YouTube, even, if that's the thing. And what I would notice is that whenever I came back to YouTube, I would either make a lot more content than people would anticipate for someone who's been gone for a while, as if they try to be gone. I can get to that in a second, maybe. Um, I would not only make a lot of content coming back in, but I would make it in a way that makes it look like I changed in a way that wasn't even implied when I was there the first time. So like, you notice, like when I was making videos in like 2010 or 2011 for the very first time, and one video in particular, which was the very first video I ever made on YouTube, was claymation related, as a matter of fact, on the Area 10 channel. And then you have the second video of the only time in that era, the 2011 video, a month later, which was maybe after I turned 13 or 14, turning 14 from 13, and I made that video, and it was a vlog video, and that was the claymation video and the vlog video were the only two videos I ever made as an early teenager. We jump skip back to forwards into about maybe my late teens. It's like late teens, early 20s, just about, whether it was on VidMe for 2017 or BitChute for 2017 or earlier or later, or whatever else I was using at the time, and then officially using YouTube in 2018, August, July, June, around that time, the summertime in 2018, starting off with the occult magic videos, and that was when I knew that if I didn't go back to claymation the first time, that there was clearly something wrong with the way that I perceived the creative arts and the way I perceived YouTube and the way I perceived life in general. There was something a little missing there. And I had that feeling for the longest time. That was even before YouTube even existed. Was what's missing? Why don't I know what it is, even if I know what's missing? I know that it's something missing, I know what it is. Or vice versa. Who knows how that works? Without making that terribly much deeper than I already did, basically my experience as a claymation animator just dipped in and out. And I would make these claymation films, these stop motion animation films, thinking that, and this is gonna get this. If you think this is a rate deep, like, dude, it gets deeper. I was using claymation to basically problem solve things in my life that I didn't understand, and I was trying to use it as a scapegoat or a problem solving tool to help me figure out my life problems, whether I cared about claymation or not. And this is gonna get even deeper with the cartooning thing, but like without bringing names in here or without even saying things specifically too much. I have to give a few examples at some point, but we'll try to do our best. The cartooning thing was a main drive for the claymation. So when the cartooning thing came along, in a nutshell, it was more like I was going to try to be a cartoonist if I knew I was a cartoonist, or if I actually saw myself as a creative, and that I can also explain in this video. So it's just if I was or wasn't, or saw myself or didn't see myself. It's the idea of entering claymation and cartooning and all the other stuff, the arts, the sciences, the athleticisms, the business entrepreneur kind of stuff, you name it, everything. Even just the simple stuff like it's a lot. There's a lot in there. Doctors, lawyers, military, uh, other stuff I've been into lately, obviously, spirituality. I mean, that's not even the whole thing that was in the same time. Fashion design, like not all that happened at the same time. Obviously, not power ups, not any other VOD content I ever made on this channel with or without that implied or made at the same time or made at all, yet or even. There comes a point where when you see me making a film like the hand time claymation and the loop hand time claymation and then the Ron's Gone Wrong claymation, that was actually a big dead ringer about what was going to happen next. When I made the Ron's Gone Wrong claymation and I did not make it look like I wanted to be there. I'm just going to be upfront about that. Like, I don't make it look like I actually think this is a good idea. And it still helps people. It helps me, obviously. I mean, I say obviously because I don't know what obviously even means at that point. But when I make the Ron's Gone Wrong film, short film claymation parody, and then when I make the Dancing Colors of Fire films, and then when I make the Chromato project, and then when I don't even follow that up, I mean, suggestively, all the way even before Ron's Gone Wrong claymation parody, you can already sense that something's wrong. People sense this about me even before I even knew it myself. But then I started to see it. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, this is a bit irrelevant, but there was one time it was someone's birthday on Discord. And I'm not only mentioning this because it's a bit of intuition reference. I noticed it was their birthday on Discord, so I told her, happy birthday, wishing you best. And it wasn't literally that word for word, obviously. I said probably different things than that, but that's probably what she inferred for that. And she could tell over the course of that little conversation, she asked me, are you okay? And I said, well, no, I'm fine. I'm just saying happy birthday. And I was like, and she's like, I sense that something's wrong here. And I say, well, maybe it could be wrong. I've been depressed before. I haven't been always bad about it before lately, but I mean, I changed over time whether I knew what it mattered or not. But for the most part, I admit being depressed before, and even currently, but I did not have to embrace it that way in the worst possible way. I was always an optimist in spite of my depression. And she said, yeah, I sense that something's not right here. You either seem sad or you're anxious or something. And I'm like, dude, I'm already saying that I've been sad before. What do you mean you're sensing this? I just told you I know I remember being sad. I've even been sad currently. I don't deny that stuff, but I don't make a blame either. And many people say I'm blaming deliberate about certain things. Long story about that even then. So I could mention that on the alt channels on YouTube or this one. Who knows? So that's an example of how intuition works from the girls and women's end. You're welcome, girls and women. My wire used to actually be about philosophy, so if that's not appropriate for this channel, then there you go. But my wire for you guys, indeed. But that's the idea of intuition at that point. So for me to not sense how claymation was different for me over time, whether I noticed it or not, it was not so much of a rude awakening. There's a long story that goes into how much I did or did not know about this for the longest time. Like, with cartooning alone, it was more like I didn't know if I should have been a cartoonist, and that was not so much the end of it. It was more like, do I know how this is going to become a thing that I should pursue, whether I did like it or not? And I'm not trying to be facetious and say I never liked it, but what I'm saying is that as this sort of semi-half demi rude awakening comes in with the cartooning and the claymation and the things I could not do that I actually thought I cared about, or maybe probably do, that were not creative related, supposedly. This was going to tie really, really lousily onto YouTube and content creation, and not just the other tremors of my own life story, including the communication stuff and the objective stuff and you name it, and everything else that concerns laws and rules and you name it. There's going to be a lot that comes in with this. I'm probably not changing the title of the video after all that thing I just said so far, but yeah, it's just basically I made films for like the longest time in 2019, straight up 1 film per month, and then no questions asked, just trust the universe. I give up universe. I'm gonna just. That was actually the funniest thing. I was doing a lot of manifestation even that year. I didn't even know what it was, but I was already doing it. So it was like, okay, universe, I give up. I'm not gonna try to be a cocky asshole and try to do things on my own and be independent and try to make decisions like people are telling me to do, even if I didn't understand it the same way anyways. But who knows? Whether people think I'm trying or not. But I'm going to give up and give you a chance to understand that even if I surrender, I still want to know what's on the other side of this. So I still want to not give up on myself because I'm that diehard optimist that people don't think I'm optimistic. People think I'm pessimistic even though I'm optimistic. That's a weird thing. But I think that was that year where I was like, 1 year for 12, 13 claymation straight, no questions asked, no bargains, working full time, even that year as well for at least half the year, and then doing classes on the side every month. No questions asked. I completely surrender universe. And then it's like, what, like behind the scenes toward clamations in 2020, and then never mind everything else that happened, obviously, but however you see that. Not judging you, even if it's different, but we're not allowed to talk about that on YouTube even then, so. But 2021 was more like the advancement of certain things, like more contests I did, more participations, more collabs, and then 2022 and beyond in 2023 either tapered off away from claymation over time, or made it look like I was going back and forth with the dips I did ever since 2011, 2010, and that included the every 10 content, the vidme content, the BitChute content, the alt content on YouTube, and everything else I made that I didn't upload on YouTube, so, or in general on the internet. So, how does this correlate to me being a content creator on YouTube and a claymation animator, whether I niche down or not, or make quality content or not? How does that tie in together my life story and my personal life and my private life and boundaries and respect and responsibility, everything else? How does that tie with communication and laws and rules and passions and talents and the Igai wheel in general? How does that all tie in? How does it make it deep? How does it make it reasonable? How does it make it objective or subjective? What I'll tell you is that because of what I just said for the last 20 seconds, you can pretty much tape together that I'm not someone who's very focused. And even people who deny who I think I am, perceptively speaking, like perceptually speaking, like perspectives-wise, even if I deny it, even if they deny it, we all can agree I haven't been a singular-minded person for the longest time. And so even if I know that I want something, if I don't prove it, it won't matter, right? So people have always been confused. Even this is the hardest thing by explaining this, is that I always knew what I was doing. I always knew what I was thinking. I always knew what my intentions were. But if I couldn't validate them, if I couldn't validate what my interests were, or my hobbies were, or my passions were, or what my talents meant to me, gonna get to that. Maybe not everything I just said I would get to, but who knows? Again, single-minded, not single-minded. I mean, then it would not matter. And this is a weird thing when people tell you you didn't truly want something if you didn't actually do something about it, and there's so many things you did not actually do. Then what did you actually want in the meantime? What did you ever really want? Did you just fail to get what you wanted, or did you? I got into this with the very first vlog video. This wasn't even a move podcast. This wasn't a deep talk. This was the vlog number 1 in 2018. I was like, you don't have to prove what you want. You don't have to. We don't have to necessarily a given inherently have what you want, but it shouldn't have to be something that is separate from what. Not so much deserving it. I could be hypocrite for saying that because I probably said something completely different in the vlog, that vlog in the Memorial Park area. But that hat was pretty cool, by the way. That hat I was wearing. You shouldn't have to warrant what you want and prove and validate, even if you don't get what you deserve. As I'm figuring out nowadays, you don't get what you deserve, get what you attract. But you shouldn't have to warrant what your hobbies and interests are. When they told me in high school, in my RTC2 class, and this wasn't so much the marching, we did some marching every once in a while, but the things we inherit, other than ramming the ranks for the army stuff, we had a bit of discussion, and we had this is one of many. I had some troubles throughout my whole life, anyways. Not gonna lie, not just in school, but Whatever people think of that, whether it's better, my favorite or not, or whatever that actually means, or whatever they really mean, or what I mean. Anyways, the conversation was, if you do not prove your hobbies and interests, they are not hobbies and interests. If you don't actionably show the world that you care about what you're doing and you care about what you want, and that you actually take action to prove that that hobby and interest is in fact a hobby and interest, it does not qualify or count as one. People are very big about qualifications in this world. When you get a college degree, you're not someone who just has a piece of paper who can get a job. You're someone who can show the world that you can do what you said you would do, and that you could do what the job requested you. I made the average gradient Jordan Pearson video earlier ago. You guys remember that was when I was still at Crosswind. And when I said that Grady's point was when Garrett's point, when Jake Iowell's point, I talked to him already. When Jake Iowell's 12's point was that he probably answered from the channel anyways, whatever, was that nobody wants someone who doesn't know how to do their job, and nobody wants somebody who doesn't have the qualifications to do said job. He wasn't lying. That is a real world fact, but I wanted to debunk him anyways because I was comparing him to somebody who admittingly was a bit of a biased point because I was comparing them to a conservative who didn't have to be right, a conservative with a lot more experience, but he didn't have to be right. I love the new experiences of the youth. I love, even myself included, I love the new perspectives and the intuition and the generation of new ideas coming in from young people. I think ageism works both ways. You can't just judge people who are older. You can also judge people who are younger as well. And we outlaw that all the time. But with the idea of qualifications, as I'm coming full circle, is that qualifications are more of a thing that you do for security, right? You don't try to prove something just because. You have a reason to prove that thing. You want to make sure that people are safe and that they're not getting screwed over for any number of reasons. Could be anything, not going to lie. But when qualifications are die hard, they become even worse than the good that they intend to be. And I can get even more into intentions and actions later. I've been doing that with the Curse of Saga videos later on across all 4 alts on YouTube, the YouTube channels. The purpose of qualifications is basically to make sure that things are set in order so that when someone actually has a reason to be asking you for a result, an intended actionable oriented result, to only care about results. Whoa, mighty wire, you didn't have to do that far. Even though literally the world does only care about results, but people don't even know what that means even then, so what the fuck. They can't coming after monetization. I'm sorry, 17 minutes in. So yeah, F-bomb. I don't even have a thumbnail for this video, whatever. We'll try to figure something out. We'll tie this back from qualifications and we'll tie this back from hobbies and interests, and we'll tie it back from the vlog content. Okay, so all the way back into claymations and content creations on YouTube in my content journey. Why do I have the hardest time trying to make claymation on YouTube? Why do I always hesitate on something that I surely enjoy, or I do enjoy, right? Because did I ever say I enjoyed it? Real talk? No. I didn't. I never said I enjoyed claymation. But I never said I hate it either, right? And this is dude, unsubscribe if you don't even want to hear this. This is just my real talk. I don't care if this even doesn't count as quality content. But there is a very weird stigma and bias that comes around with anyone who's met me in my life who is innocently admitted that I was a creative person, which they're not wrong about, or at least I don't think that yet. I said on Twitter that I wasn't creative, but that's another story. It could be different, but there's this weird stigma, and people misuse the word stigma too, so don't get me wrong with this. I might be misunderstanding the word stigma myself, but let's say that this is right for once. Maybe we won't brag. There's a stigma that I am a creative person because I proved it, validated it, and made sure that it was real. But like I said about the warranting your hobbies and interests, warranting your passions, warranting the qualifications you have to be doing a job properly for results. I'm not saying that I don't like creativity. I'm not saying I don't like claymation or cartooning or the arts or animations or arts and fine arts and all that. I'm not saying I don't like entertainment. I'm not saying I don't like these things. I'm saying that it was forced down my throat so freaking bad that I didn't even know what to make of it anymore. It was the same way that laws and rules came across with me with the crabbots on the forums. It's the same way that my awkward pornography addiction came about with the nofap and semen retention stuff I mentioned every once in a while. That comes about because I do in fact have a pornography addiction. I don't just say that because I'm ashamed. Oh, I'm anxious and stressed. Oh, I'm ashamed of the fact that I'm an addict. I don't say stuff like that. I don't even believe that. I say it because it's true. I say that because it literally downgrades my sexual energy and my life force. It's something that actually literally sucks. It makes my life a poor quality than it needs to be. So being forced to be creative doesn't make me somebody that has to be a multitasking extrovert, a vlogging philosopher, you name it. It's just that there's a tragedy that I don't understand. I want to be able to diagnose it with psychoanalysis. It's not just a webnoob from 2017 VidMe era. I could still make the webnoob video for psychoanalysis. That'd be creepy, but also kind of cool. Who knows? I don't have to psychoanalyze my childhood trauma. I don't have to be able to study astrology and tarot reading and occultism and theosophy and all of the cool stuff I like, whether I can make them work for my life or not. And I already did so far, so there's your spoiler alert. Law of manifestation and even agorism, anarchy, and all that stuff. So not just no-fat semen retention. When I refused to make niche down quality content on YouTube, whether even if that wasn't going to be claymation or cartooning, am I running away from myself? Honestly, I'm not, because I'm trying to discover myself. But more than that, I'm not lying to you when I say that I didn't understand creativity. I didn't understand nostalgia. I didn't understand community. I didn't know what these things were. I was so slow developing. I'm not being hard on myself. I'm just saying this because it's hardcore facts. I was what I called positively and optimistically a slow-paced cultivator. Someone who enjoyed and thrived from the idea of being a solo developer in spite of how terrible and awkward it was to learn that way. In some ways, if I chose to see that attitudinally speaking. That comes into when I make the deep documentary series and the Move podcast, and now there's new podcasts as well, thank gosh. But the Move podcast, the deep documentaries, things of that nature where it's clear that I can succeed without claymation, even if I don't do it right the first time. So I don't need claymation to succeed in that regard. Not just the growth on YouTube, not just the, you want to call it financial or audience or whatever on YouTube, whether that's metered success, how that works. It would not have to be because I didn't want to be a claymation animator. It wouldn't have to even be because I don't love claymation. What I'm telling you is that I enjoy the idea of struggling with something that I don't understand. And most people know how to see that from me. They don't have to be like, wow, claymation cool, end of story. And that could be a good or bad thing depending on my attitude at that point. But I enjoyed making variety content. I really did. If I still make variety content, that's on me for not growing my channel or bringing an audience with monetization, whatever. But this video is more about the claymation content creation journey thing. And that doesn't have to be about the variety content. But that was definitely involved, wasn't it? Was making the very first video that I made about real talk, like the 50-minute video in like 2021. That was talking, 2020 I think it was. That was talking about how I really felt about claymation and what I would have done instead of it. There was more to it than even that implied. If I'm the kind of person who does not necessarily want to make claymation and still doesn't know how to get away from it, I could be take backseat. I said in the last video description, I hate to take backseats sometimes, but I'm someone who also procrastinates to take backseats. So even I'm being a bit of a hypocrite when I say that. My contradictions of that could be in part to anything else, but if that even makes sense. The claymations I made, the sculptures I made, the films I produced, the collaborations, the things I did with contests, lip sync, special effects, you name it. If I don't do anything for this, whatever. But I don't regret that. I'm not saying, I cannot stress this enough. I'm not saying I hate claymation. I just don't understand my tragedy. I don't understand why there's a bit of a struggle. When people say passion's key or passion's a lie, I don't think either of those are the point. I would love to use passion as a tool. I just don't know how to. but it's like whether it could be anything. What's the funniest thing? People say you do varied content so you can discover yourself and then find a niche. I did varied content in spite of claymation. Not gonna lie, but in spite of the niche that I knew I could work with, I did varied content, and that was either to have fun or to experiment or both. And whenever people saw me as an oddball, that I didn't be. People who still say they have my back, who still think they have my back, and people who think that they have my best interest at heart. The weirdest thing you could ever tell somebody is that you have their best interest at heart, because you don't get to determine that. You don't get to judge that about them. You don't get to say that you have their best interest at heart if you don't even express that with the examples you used, let alone how you say that, which is not legibly true in the first place. So be careful when you claim that you got someone's back if you don't really have their back. That's how true narcissism and really awkward bump contracts can exist in the world. Well, not all bump contracts are narcissistic, but I don't even want to talk about that point. But I made a video about gratitude narcissism. That was a philosophy in general. This video is probably going to end short because I have low battery maybe, but here's what I'm going to end off with, and like maybe one more minute to make 26 minutes for 26 years old. I love claymation. It's just not my passion. That's the first disclaimer. Claymation is not my passion. Second disclaimer. I don't hate claymation. I just have childhood trauma. Third disclaimer. I love variety content. I love multitasking. I love being an extrovert, traveling, socializing, dating women and girls. Sorry, Muktel, I had to say that at the end of this video. I probably won't date for a while anyways, even if you don't want me to in the first place, but if I have an actual life partner in the meantime, whether that comes with law of attraction or not, law of manifestation or not, because I die hard for ripped up at this point, so whatever have you. Oh, it's already 26 minutes. Okay, I'm sorry, but the reason we're still developing ourselves, the reason I'm still developing myself, suddenly changing my YouTube handle, my name, and my banner and YouTube avatar, and all that stuff, and making a second podcast, I do this because it's either the most objective thing I can curse or saga prove in the moment, the most objective thing I can do in the moment that I think is still intuitively resonates with me. And I even, I'll say this on the side, I enjoy making this video. I really do. I don't just make this to make a point that I don't care about. I say it because I do enjoy making these videos. If I didn't care about making this video, it would be 10 times harder to make it look like I was comfortable making this video. But I still do uncomfortable things in the meantime, in spite of this. So whatever discomfort I experience after this would still be implied to be growth and development, growth and evolution implied. Growth and evolution up the proverbial mountain I mentioned in the 5th Move podcast episode. You thought that was a coincidence? I said that as a bit of a spiritual side as well. So, but I don't hate what people think are my passions. I just don't want them to be forced anymore. I don't want to be forced to do something that I don't even know how to escape from. Like, people will tell me, I like this, I don't like this, but if I try to do anything else, I feel like I'm guilt tripping myself away from it, which is a guilt trip in itself. And every time I try to do something that I actually care about, people push it away from me, or I push it away from myself thinking I should still be a creative person. Do you see how bad this trauma is? But at the same time, the shadow work is great, but it can overwhelm anybody, even me. The shadow work is great. You don't want to be in that Congo line. Thank you, Take Inventory. Unfortunately, your channel got nuked. I think he had to erase his videos because he was going through stuff. But I don't even think he's on even Discord anymore. But but WebNoob is, so Tragic Solitude's on YouTube still and on Discord now. Tragic Solitude came to Discord. She's my old WebNoob friend from VidMe, but so WebNoob's back. I don't know about Take Inventory, but the shadow work is great. It is really good. Being able to not be in that Congo line of hedonism forever is good. That's a good first step. But don't stay there. Don't stay in shadow work and think that you have to only burden yourself about the depressions and the traumas and the anxieties of life. Work towards your goals. Work towards the things that make you happy. Try to have some form of fun, if not as much fun as possible, in spite of what you know your weaknesses are and what strengths you could still be improving. And improving weaknesses and improving your strengths primarily, because I'm looking at the Jocko Winlink podcast. Jocko mentioned that on his podcast, military thing. Improve your strengths at least majority of the time, and then maybe improve weaknesses as well. Don't prioritize them as a weakness or a strength improvement, if that makes sense. And here's what I'll say for the end card on 30 minutes. Will I still make claymations? Of course. Even if I didn't make that clear this whole 30 minutes or half hour, I'll still make claymations. I promise. Like, I promise I'll make claymations, but it's not my passion. It's my talent. And who gives up on their strengths if no one else can make that decision for them?